Greetings. It's another week in America, but we are trying to stay positive.
Somehow,
Okay.
just like our president, who is once again trying to speak his dreams into existence, manifesting, Currently, it's a peace in the Middle
He is
East.
a manifester.
He does
Not the
that.
president being a
Yes,
manifester.
yes. Peace in the Middle East and affordable goods in the U.S. is what he's trying to manifest right now.
Okay. His what shall we say, Norman Peele style manifesting.
Uh-huh.
I would argue it's actually Amanda from the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. She is a master manifester. Unlike Amanda's manifesting, though, it is not working
No.
because the prices are high and they're about to get higher, especially on the things that are made in places that really rely on Iranian oil. Things like lipstick,
Ladies.
vaccines, plastic bags. Justice for the plastic bags under my counter.
Isn't that great? This week in El Paso, a woman named Daisy Rivera Ortega is in ICE detention.
Now, why is she in ICE detention?
So she went in for an interview
Okay.
last week. She was applying for a program that protects spouses of active duty military from deportation.
Hold on.
Mm-hmm.
So Daisy's not a criminal?
No, not at all.
Okay.
No. She hasn't been allowed to go home. Her husband, he's an Army sergeant who's been serving for, Simone, how long do you think he's been serving
I
for?
mean, at least 20 years, right?
27 years.
This is criminal. This is
27
crazy.
years. He told CBS News, quote, "I don't really understand why, because she followed the rules of immigration."
This is tragic. Okay, I'm sorry, but this is insane.
But isn't that what Republicans have been saying forever? We want people to follow the rules. And here we go, following
And
the
look
rules.
at Daisy following the rules.
Still not enough.
Well, also what was happening this week in Virginia, voters, they have voted for a effort by the state's Democratic Party to do some mid-decade redistricting.
Mhm.
This makes it so Dems could have the upper hand in 4 congressional races in November. Even President Obama got involved in this special election.
Hey, Virginia. Early voting is underway, and Virginians are turning out in record numbers to vote yes. By voting yes, you have a chance to do something important, not just for the Commonwealth, but for our entire country. By voting yes, you can push back against the Republicans trying to give themselves an unfair advantage in the midterms.
And to be very clear, President Obama got involved because he is he's helped start the National Democratic Redistricting Committee, of
Him,
which
Eric
Eric
Holder,
Holder
yeah.
is in charge of. And so obviously this is very much so in their wheelhouse.
And opposite of how he used to talk about redistricting. So it's very much a
Well,
fire with
this
fire
is
situation.
in response to what Donald Trump did.
Exactly.
And it wasn't just politicians who got involved. Pusha T and John Legend, Pusha T, who is a Virginia native,
Yes.
they put this out last week.
What's up, Pusha?
What's up?
I'm in your state. I'm in Richmond, VA. I got a show tonight, and I wanted to check in with you because we got to talk.
Here's what's going on. Some states are redrawing congressional maps to give Republicans more power to do what they want.
Can I just note that John Legend, it is not new for me
No.
to see him get
Yeah.
engaged and involved. He has been politically engaged and involved over a number of cycles. And so, shout out to Pusha T.
Yeah,
Okay, we
Pusha
need to get him
T.
on the podcast.
That's 100%. So that is all happening in the backdrop. But right now, we're going to dig into why in God's world is Jared Kushner a special envoy for peace with an extremely high security clearance. We're going to talk about billionaires owning newspapers and or trying to make all their mergers happen, making some money.
And then cultural icon,
Yes.
image activist,
Yes,
and
yes,
owner
yes.
of one of the best afros in town, Michaela Angela Davis will join the show to talk about Black representation in politics and culture, right up in her wheelhouse. Can't wait to see my girl.
All of the things. But first, who is in charge at the White House?
Well, you know what? They used to ask this question a lot when Joe Biden was the president, and
They
I just feel
did.
like, I have real questions about if Donald Trump is really calling the shots here. Is
He
it
seems
Prime
a little
Minister
confused
Netanyahu?
sometimes.
Who is
He
it?
seems confused sometimes. Let's say that. Last week, and actually on the weekend on our show, a curious
Which
thing
show? Oh,
happened.
The
My
Weekend,
show.
the new weekend. Okay, I
The
used to
best
co-host.
weekend.
I used to co-host the
The
weekend.
best weekend. Yes, made it better. That's what
Oh,
we did.
okay. All right. Well, version 2.0.
Yeah.
Well, what happened on this new version of The Weekend, child?
Donald Trump, he announced he was going to send a team back to Pakistan for more negotiations. He was going to end the war in Iran. During the break, Margot Jackie Alamany called Trump on the phone on set. Listen to this.
What?
Wow. 5 seconds ago, Jackie just got off the phone with President Trump. She called
president.
during the
Tell
break.
us.
Well, you guys heard too.
Yeah.
You start. Let me fix my hair.
So Jackie did what a reporter does and what Jackie does. She dialed the president of the United States. He answered the phone.
Okay, Jackie.
My girl Jackie got her foot on these people's
Jackie
neck.
ain't even a White House reporter,
Okay.
child, but she is in there. Shout out to
All
Jackie
right,
Alamany.
my girl.
Okay, so what happened?
This is something that happens all the time, right? Reporters cold call the president who should be busy. He just picks up. So listen to
Now-
more of the conversation.
Okay, yes, okay.
You asked him if the vice president were going. He said no, the vice president is not going because of security reasons. Jackie.
Yeah, the president said that Secret Service essentially, I feel like the takeaway was they don't have enough time to sort
Yeah.
of set up.
Because of the speed. And then before the show was over, this happened in the 8 o'clock, around like 8:30-ish. Before the show was over, it's over at 10, we were being told by administration officials that Vance is going to lead the negotiations. And Trump didn't say he was going to go, even though we all heard him say that with our own ears.
Now, I have two
just-
thoughts. Now,
uh-huh.
there's a camp of people that are like, oh, these reporters that are picking up the phone calling the president, they're getting spun because
Well,
Donald Trump is just taking every call, trying to seed his, narrative out
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
And people are just writing it up. Now, I will say, the folks here at MS Now and our girl Jackie, she didn't just do that. She gives nuance,
Exactly.
takes and whatnot. But I do think it is important for people to at least try to reach out to hear from the president himself. For if no other reason, we could clock it if he lies.
Correct.
Okay.
And this is what I think was different about the call that Jackie did. And
'Cause
she's
you
done
heard
it
it.
before. Yes, I heard it. But I think they were on the phone for maybe a couple minutes, maybe. And when we came back and throughout the show, she didn't just say what he said,
Mhm.
right? We put it in context.
Mhm.
She
Oh, you were
tried to say- we
a real reporter.
I don't know. Call it crazy.
Not a stenographer.
Call it crazy. And then we looked into the idea of whether or not what he was saying was true. And what we
Mhm.
ended up finding was that the president of the United States told us one thing. Minutes later, U.S. officials were saying the other thing. Now, there are a couple things that could have happened here,
Mhm.
right? Left hand might not know what the right hand is doing.
Well, it could be true that the Secret Service did say
Uh-huh. As
that.
you know, you've said in
oh
those
my
meetings.
gosh, I have tussled with Secret Service. Okay, to be very clear, the men and women of the Secret Service, they are there to.
They have one job.
They have one job.
Yeah.
Keep the protectee safe,
Yeah.
okay? Keep them from getting killed,
Mhm.
injured, hurt, any way, shape, or
Mhm.
form. And so if the Secret Service is telling you no for some reason, they are saying it because they have concerns about the safety of the protectee. Now, there are some times when the Secret Service tells you no, and you're like, I understand Secret Service, but I need this to be a yes, child.
Correct.
No is
Figure it
not an
out.
answer.
Right.
But these talks in Pakistan, they came about quickly.
Very
This isn't like the
quickly.
last time where like
Right.
they were planning a lead
Right.
up to like one day out of blue, we going to Pakistan on Tuesday.
Right.
Well, you just can't get to Pakistan. Oh, sure, the site where they may be having the meeting is
Uh-huh.
secure, but what
Getting
about
there.
getting there?
Yeah.
Okay, you want to make sure the protectee, the route, like we don't want, God forbid, something happens on the way
Yeah.
to the meeting. While
Yeah.
the room may be secure, is the route secure? Is the hotel secure? Are there assets in the region? These are all reasons why.
If something happens, can the VP be
Correct.
pulled out immediately?
Correct.
And
Is
taken
there an
somewhere?
extra,
Yeah.
the vice president always travels with a spare plane, child, a plane and a half, okay?
Yes.
So do we have another plane in the
Mhm.
region?
I'll never forget when we were on a trip. I don't remember what
Was
country
it
we were
me?
in. I think you were there, and then I saw the guys with the big guns coming. Where were we?
Oh, was this the one in Guatemala?
Yes, we went
Oh.
for the inauguration.
Oh, this was Guatemala. I was not on that trip. Yeah, I had left
Terrible.
the White House by then, but I heard all
Terrible.
about it from
Very
my peeps.
scary.
Yes, because it was not. We're going off on a tangent, but I think
Yes.
this matters. The vice president's motorcade at the time was like just out there in the crowd. There were
Uh-huh.
crowds of people, and the big guns, the people in the Skechers, as I like to
Uh-huh,
say, they got
uh-huh.
Skechers and all black. They hopped out, and they when the big guns hop out in the tactical gear with the Skechers, baby.
Then we
You-
start being like, what is happening? So this is all to say
It's a long
it's a
tangent, but it
lot
matters
of, it's a lot of
because
things that go into
maybe
this.
so perhaps the Secret Service did say
Mhm.
that Vance cannot go, and that's the last Trump heard about it. And he's like, oh, well, he ain't going. And then maybe Vance's team was like,
Hold
we
up
can't
now.
have the president saying we ain't going. You know what I mean? Because I don't know.
We
It could
don't-
look like we didn't do a good job. He couldn't get a ceasefire worked out on his last trip, so Donald Trump replaced him.
I think the thing that's so interesting is that J.D. Vance, according to all the reporting, including David Rode, our colleague, Iran wants him in the room. Now,
Why?
because he is the person who, if you're Iran and you're looking at all of our coverage, if you're looking at maybe the way that the folks talked in the room last time,
Oh, because he's
he
not a
is not as-
warmonger.
he's not
Because
a-
he's the only one that didn't
he's
support.
not a war hawk. He's
apparently.
the one who allegedly.
Allegedly, according to the reporting, which is very interesting to me that the vice president is the only one that comes out clean as a motherfreaking whistle.
And the president has said that, like, he doesn't really want this. So, like, even the president has acknowledged that J.D. Vance.
I mean, being
is
on the same side as
pushing-
J.D. Vance, I also
it's-
don't want the war.
Yeah. You and
I
J.D.
also-
best friends.
Come on, Mr. vice president.
Clock
I
it.
also don't want
Clock
the
it
war.
with Simone and JD.
Come on, I don't want the war. Neither does the people. Neither does the fashion industry. Okay, Eugene. Well, after all of that, child, there was a lot of back and forth.
Yeah.
Okay, because at one point they were like he was on the plane. Another point they were like he's not
Nah.
on the plane. He's actually having meetings. He's been delayed. After all of that, JD Vance did not fly to Islamabad. Okay, people are not chatting.
They're
This
not
is a mess. This is a mess.
It is a symptom.
Unforced error.
Unforced error that is a symptom when you have a president of the United States who, instead of allowing the conversations to happen and then announcing the trip like they usually do, instead what he's been doing is just like putting it on Truth Social.
Where are the stories from the White House reporters about how chaotic and unprofessional the vice president's office is?
I think the president's office.
All of them.
Yeah.
Because when I worked at the White House, there were a lot of stories about that, about how like
Who wrote
the
those?
vice president is bad at their job, that the White House is upset. Where are the report? I feel like you used to write some of those stories about the lady I used to work for, and there are a lot of White House reporters that are still at the White House right now that have written some of these stories up. I would like to see them write this up about JD Vance, because let me tell you something. It is amateur hour at the OK Corral in this bitch, okay? It is insane what is going on at the White House. Why don't y'all fucking know?
Yeah.
What is going on? This is crazy.
And with
Sorry,
that,
it's crazy.
and with that,
And with that, we're moving the hell on.
because the other thing that is insane doesn't even cover it. But the son-in-law of the president of the United States, who had an official role in the White House in the first term, who after he left, according to reports, was invested in by the Saudis, I think to the tune of $2 billion.
Yes.
And so
At least $2 billion.
him now going over and over and being the lead on these negotiations in the Middle East, whether it was the negotiations for a peace deal with Israel and Gaza, or this peace deal
The
with
peace deal that
United
has yet to manifest.
well,
Okay.
Iran and us and Israel, at the end of the day, he has business interests. And so at the very least, it brings up a ton of questions about whether or not he should be in the room with these people. And yet, he's in the room and accountable to no one.
Let me just say something.
Yep.
It's not just previously that Jared Kushner, was tied up getting money from the Middle East. In March, he spoke with potential investors about raising $5 billion with a B, folks, more for Affinity Partners, which is his investment firm. And that is according to 5 people with knowledge to the talks who were not
To the New York
committed.
Times.
Yes, the New York Times, who weren't allowed to speak publicly. Like, he is actively going to raise money for his, little business ventures. Wow.
Not little when there's billions of dollars.
I'm just saying, little business ventures. Whenever a black woman is like, yeah, you and your
A
little
little,
so-and-so.
it is not
Shady.
good.
It is not good. Don't ever let a black woman hit you with a you and your little whatever.
You and your little friends.
We're being shady. You and
I'm
your
not
little
one
friends.
of your little friends.
I'm not one of your little friends,
Mhm,
okay? It is just, the level of corruption and grift and whatnot that is going on is actually insane. But to be very clear, if this was any other administration, like what, Hunter Biden?
There'd be some kind
I'm
of
just saying,
consequence.
they said Hunter Biden was out here doing deals and everything. Everything they said Hunter Biden was doing, Jared Kushner is actually doing. It's insane. All right.
Blood pressure low. Bring it
Okay, let me.
Woosah. What's his name?
Zen. Where's Cleo
Woosah,
Wade? Let me
bad
find
boy. Yeah,
my
what's
center,
Cleo?
center myself, like Cleo told us last week. Okay, can we talk about one of the few things that we do know about this war for certain? Because there's some other things we don't understand. But what we do understand is that it is expensive. It is actually costing U.S. taxpayers. Now, one estimate said $1 billion a day. That's not even accurate. It is low. Now, we have not received any additional information about the price from the Pentagon or the White House in weeks, because again, they are not briefing the government. They are not briefing the members
As they
of Congress.
should, and
Okay,
should be doing.
as
Supposed
they
to be
should.
doing.
On Thursday of last week, the OMB director, Office of Management and Budget, Russell Vogt,
Author of
Project 2025 Child, chief architect, one could argue, he testified in front of the United States Senate, and this is what he had to say.
I want to confirm this. You have no idea, none, how much has been spent on the war so far?
We don't have that figures right now. I think in part because it's fluctuating on a day in, day out basis. But it's one of the reasons we want to are studiously reviewing.
You can't even give us a range.
No, I'm not going to give you a range because I don't want to
You're
be
just not
inaccurate.
going to tell you and tell us because you don't want us to know how much is being spent.
Baby, Patty Murray does not play. She said, so you're not going to tell us.
It's fluctuating on a day-to-day basis. It's given we don't know what we're spending.
Which is crazy because it's y'all's money.
Our money,
Our money, yes, we
taxpayer
also pay
dollars.
taxes.
Yes, because you paid your taxes,
Yeah,
right?
correct.
April 15th have passed now. A couple weeks ago, the Harvard Kennedy School of Government, shout out to the Harvard Kennedy School, I'm a former fellow, okay, the Institute of Politics. Well, the Kennedy School, they ran an interview with a public policy expert on its website. And this is what the public policy expert
This
said.
is crazy.
She said that she believes the real cost is more like $2 billion a day, and that she is, quote unquote, certain the war will cost $1 trillion over the next decade. 1 trillion, how much is $1 trillion?
They're too much. And I just think that, like, a war that a lot of people who do this work say was unnecessary. Everyone's been calling it a war of choice. We did the invasion.
Yeah.
We decided as a country, from our leadership of this country, to spend the $1 to $2 billion a day of American taxpayer money.
And for what reason, we still have yet to hear articulated from the United States
Nothing
government.
very clear. The Trump administration put out its budget for 2027 earlier this month, which no one cares about because everyone moves it along. It's more about what their values are. In it, Trump is asking for an additional $445 billion with the B dollars for military spending than he got last year. It's like, if you went into the office and said, hey, I need a 40% raise.
I do need a 40% raise. I think
You and
I'm
Trump
worth
on the
it.
look at
Me-
you finding common ground
Not me finding
with the
common
leadership
ground
of the
with
country.
the president. That's crazy.
It gets them to $1.5 trillion on defense. The budget asks for $660 billion for non-defense spending, and that is a 10% cut.
Child, here are just a few of the programs the budget proposes to cut. Let me get my list, okay?
Yes.
Low income home energy assistance program, gone.
Mhm.
They're proposing to cut the administration for, here we go, strategic preparedness and response, gone.
Uh-huh.
A program called Housing Opportunities for Persons with AIDS, and one called Food for Peace, because we don't want food or peace. You know how much money those 4 programs cost? How much?
How do you tell me?
They cost $6 billion with a B.
Which is, when you're talking about these numbers, that's nothing.
It's insane. Let's keep following the money, okay? But we're going to move on to the private sector. The billionaires, they want to own the media companies, Eugene,
Mhm.
and TV stations, and they want to own newspapers, but they might not get to, particularly in this one case.
Exactly. You're talking about the judge who halted the
Yes.
Nexstar Tegna merger on Friday of last week. He said the merger is, quote, presumed likely to violate antitrust laws. This was the deal that would have put 265 local stations in the hands of one big company. And what needs to be made very clear here is that most of the American people still get their news from local news. In February, Trump posted in favor of the merger, because that's what you're supposed to do as president,
Mhm.
saying it would make for, quote, more competition against the enemy, the fake news national TV networks. It's your president, guys.
I just don't understand.
But Democratic state attorneys general sued to stop it.
This is what he posted on his
Mhm.
little social media site, Eugene. Letting good deals get done like Nexstar, Tegna will help knock out the fake news. I can't even continue to read this. It is insane, because he criticized the purchase in November of 2025, about 2.5 months prior to this post. Now he has
It's
changed
all over the place.
his tune. It's literally all over the place. Remember when Jimmy Kimmel
Yep.
was threatened and was taken off the air by the local
Mhm.
stations? Okay, it was
Nexstar.
Nexstar that did that. Okay, so you tell me if this is a good idea, if these two should merge, and now they own all the stations. So this is an example of what I like to say, the bad billionaires, if you
Yes.
will. The bad billionaires are understanding the assignment. They're trying to buy up all the things.
Because they want to craft the way people think about this country.
Correct. Because if you own the information infrastructure, the economy, you can dictate the information that people get. And
Create the reality.
come on now, clock it. Eugene, there are
Mhm.
more bad billionaires. Let me just tell you something. Stuff is going down at the Baltimore Sun. This is a
Uh-huh.
real life example. We're not talking about this in abstract ways, folks.
Yeah.
The Baltimore Sun is a major newspaper in Baltimore, in Maryland, frankly. Like Baltimore Sun was like the newspaper. Shout out to the Baltimore Banner, though. They have now, got it out the mud, because of what's going on at the Sun. They were recently purchased by the executive chairman of the Sinclair Broadcast Group, okay? Sinclair is I would argue,
I think a lot of people would.
okay, a conservative
Mhm.
leaning outlet, if you will. They own a lot of local TV stations.
Mhm.
In many of the past elections, they've had their local folks read scripts from the same script that basically sounds like that they are like in a dystopian universe.
We are concerned about trouble and trend of irresponsible, one-sided news stories plaguing our country. Plaguing our country.
The Baltimore Sun has been targeting, ever since
Yeah.
they got bought by Sinclair, they've been targeting Governor Wes Moore, okay? This is Governor Wes Moore on these investigations against him, talking to our colleague Jen Psaki on April 7th. Take a listen.
The United States Army doesn't question my integrity. The soldiers I serve with don't question my integrity. But we are seeing how the right wing and these right-wing billionaires, like David Smith, is then using his wealth to be able to manipulate local media, and is doing it not just in Maryland, but this is a canary in the coal mine for things that are happening all over the country, and they're doing it to curry favor for Donald Trump.
To be clear, it is not a given that if there's a billionaire that owns something, that means that the reporters are all of a sudden going to write like the billionaire wants. However,
Correct. I think that there's good billionaires, there's bad billionaires, and then there's neutral billionaires that literally, they don't give a ding-dong dip. They just want to own something.
exactly.
Okay?
They just, they
I
want
think
some
David Smith, in my
assets.
opinion, falls into the bad billionaire category.
I think
And the
some other
people
people
in
who-
Baltimore, and I definitely think in the governor's mansion, would agree
think
in
they would.
Maryland, okay?
I am also following what's happening at the Star, Simone. So this was a website starting with a grant from one of those good billionaires, Robert Albritton, who co-founded Politico. I used to work for him. And in June, that website is going to relaunch using the name of a paper called The Washington Star that used to be very important here in D.C. It is the paper that exposed the Tuskegee experiment,
Clock
in
it.
1972.
Yes. Now, the editor-in-chief told the New York Times that they're taking advantage of job and coverage cuts at the Washington Post, and they will actually double the size of their newsroom this year. That is very, 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 very important.
I will say a couple things. One, Robert Albritton's dad used to own the Washington Star. So that is a way to help to bring back his father and his family's legacy. Also, having worked for Robert Albritton, he is one of those folks who owns the news organization who kind of like is not involved. Like we did not.
So he's in one of the neutral billionaires.
Yeah, like he just like did not. He was not all up in our shit. Like he wasn't telling us what to do. We had no idea what stories he liked or didn't like. We of course saw him, right? I wrote playbook, so like I saw him. We went to dinner, but
He'd be
at
like, I love that.
Exactly.
Like, glad you're on the team.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. Thank you for the money, sir. But like at no point did he ever even like intimate to us what he thought of the coverage, other than like y'all are killing it. Not like, oh, you need to change this, tweak this. Never. Now, I don't know if those conversations happened with the folks that were running the organization, but that's where those conversations are supposed to stay. And that is not what's happening at other organizations where billionaires own it, right? That is not what's happening, according to all the people I know.
Come
At
on.
the Washington Post.
Come on. What
That is-
about CBS?
Okay, that is not what's happening. It is very clear
David
to
Ellison.
some of those reporters, either explicitly or implicitly, what the owners want. And that is not good for the reporters, the reporting, or democracy itself.
And it's not good for the people
Yeah.
of this country
Yeah.
because, again, the Ellison family, they own a stake in TikTok. You talk about the billionaires. I'm thinking about Meta, which owns Facebook and WhatsApp and
And
Threads
Instagram.
and Instagram. These are all entities through which people are, if you just poll them, this is where people are saying they're getting their news.
Yeah.
And so the people who own these platforms and these organizations and these news stations and these
Yeah.
newspapers, they are able to affect what people believe to be true. And that's scary if it's a bad billionaire who understands the assignment.
Let's leave those billionaires behind. They can go. We'll keep their money.
I would like to.
We'll share it
Make
with
me a
people.
billionaire. I will be one of the good ones.
I would rob her because we have the very special Michaela Angela Davis joining our chat.
Stay tuned. You see
Come
how
on,
we
we
did
got
a
it
joint?
together.
Yeah.
Welcome to the group chat. Michaela Angela Davis, founding fashion director of Vibe Magazine, former editor-in-chief of Honey Magazine, former fashion director of Essence Magazine. She coined the title Image Activist, and she is the author of the very honest and eye-opening memoir, Tenderheaded.
Yes. Yes, Michaela Angela Davis, thank you so much for coming to the group chat
Icon.
and coming on the podcast. She is iconic.
Iconic.
This is like living Black history right here.
100%.
Okay?
100%. No, actually. So your flowers, we give them to you.
I caught them. I received them. I wish I was in the studio to kiki with you all. I love you. You're so fun and kinetic.
Oh,
you.
thank you.
Thank
We
you,
see you got
thank
the
you.
green memo today. We
Exact-
did not even color coordinate
Money.
this, okay? Money.
We got money on
We
our
did
minds, I
not.
think. So I want to start because when I think about you, I think about like the iconic run you had in the
Mhm.
90s and the aughts. And it felt like Black media that was presenting us to the world, had a heyday. Everybody was there, but Vibe, Honey, Jet, Ebony, that whole
Essence.
ecosystem. Essence.
Mhm.
But now that whole ecosystem is either gone or kind of a shell of itself, sometimes owned by not Black people. What did we actually lose when we lost that heyday of Black media?
Are you gonna start? You're gonna start with the most emotional question
Yeah.
regarding media, Eugene. No, really, because I have some grief about it.
Yeah.
And writing this book was helping me process that grief of losing. It wasn't even so much what I feel as a heyday. It was just that we were visible, we were seen, and part of wanting to get record of this in the book is so that there is a record, there is an archive that we were there. There were journalists, photographers, creative directors, graphic designers, not just the stories, but the industry, that we were above ground for a while
Yeah.
because there's a parallel universe, kind of like the movie Us, like underneath,
Oh,
you
yep.
know, there was Vibe and Honey and The Source and Rap Pages, and we were covering our culture for ourselves in our own voice. Just it's like at Vibe, we thought that we were the Rolling Stone of hip hop, that we were going to cover our own culture for the first time. And
Yeah.
so losing particularly our legacy institutions, like Ebony was so radical, where you had, you know, essays by James Baldwin and
Yeah.
Martin Luther King Jr. and Andre Leon Talley was the fashion director. And it was covering Black life in a way that no one else was doing. I remember a 70s issue talking about a yogi that lived in Hawaii. You know, so what is lost is a home base. When times like this are happening, when over 300,000 Black women have lost their job, where do we go to, you know, it would be Essence. We would turn to Essence right away, right? For a voice, a perspective, some help. And now some of the best Black journalists you'll find at The Atlantic or The New Yorker.
Yeah.
So we've lost kind of like the beauty shop and the barbershop in the neighborhood. Like that's what it feels like that place where you would just run in and get what you need, either to stay there or to go out into the world. We've had to build other kinds of communities that used to provide for us.
You know, it is so interesting because we often, I don't know, obviously I came up on the communication side of
Yeah,
all
yeah,
of this,
yeah.
and I used to always, early in my career, I would say I am the communications person that is also Black, not the Black communications person.
Correct.
Because I wanted them to know that,
Yes.
like, yes, I'm Black, but I can do it all. And later on in my career, what a mentor once told me, it was Mignon Moore, she said, you know, you need to know your community. And knowing
right,
your
Mignon
community,
Moore.
come on, right?
Okay.
She said, knowing your community will be your superpower because
Yeah.
when you get into these rooms, you need to be able to know your community. My community is young people. My community is women. My community is Black people. My community is Black women. And I think when I think about these publications that, to be clear, Essence is still around. Ebony is still around, but not like it was before. Ebony hasn't been in print since, what,
it's not
29?
splayed out on the table. You
Co-
know, it's
Come
not.
on now.
It's not
We
splayed
not
out
ordering?
on your table.
No,
Yes, it's
no.
not the same thing.
Right? It's not
I
fanned
just
out at the beauty shop.
Exactly. And
yes.
frankly, they're not doing what we used to do. Like
Right.
you wrote in your book about how, I believe it was her first assignment for Essence as fashion editor was to dress Anita Hill. And that was after she accused then Supreme Court nominee Clarence Thomas of sexual harassment. Like that ain't happening.
Yeah.
That is not
Yeah.
happening now.
Yeah, that being your first assignment, that's when I knew, you know, that I was somewhere that made a difference, that there were Black women that cared about Black women's particulars, handling Anita Hill, who was a superhero for all women. But
Yeah.
we came in, I remember Susan famously saying, Black women look different in fuchsia. So we give her a fuchsia
Well,
jacket. Like, that's not
well,
going to happen at Vogue in the same way. Do you know what I mean? And the way that they
mm-hmm.
feel. And I remember Jet, I still call it the Jet in my head. The Jet
Yeah.
had a television show. And you would see an interview with Sammy Davis Jr. in his house being a very different way than he would be on, say, the Dick Cavett show. This is all ancient history that I'm bringing up, but those things matter. And it was one of the things I think we were talking about, not to play auntie with you two, but for the two of you to be in news and coming out as authentically as you are is something that we've been chipping at through Black media. And Black media gives you the courage and the confidence to go into any room with your face beat for the gods, your nails done, all your Black sensibilities come with you, and you're comfortable there. That's something we've been working on, but without having home base. And you all, as millennials, can actually let me know, do you feel that you're missing something by not having, an Essence or of honey or something like that to kind of get your juices going?
Do you feel like it? Yeah.
Absolutely. I
Because the
used
shade
to-
room ain't cutting it. Let me just, no
Absolutely.
shade to the shade room, but the
Right.
shade room
We
is
need
not
more.
cutting it.
We need
We
more.
need real journalism
and
that
part-
tell real Black stories.
And part of it was like, it was when you have Vibe and Jet and Essence and Ebony and Honey and all the others, they're doing different things, right? So it's like there's not one view, not one
Correct.
myopic view of what Black life is. I mean, every month I would take my little $4.99 that I had to scrounge up, maybe give some plasma for,
Oh,
and go get
Lord.
my Vibe magazine. Every time that I've moved, I usually have like a huge stack. I finally, after like a decade or so of just carrying around since college, a bunch of Vibes and all these other things. Some I kept because there was some iconic covers, right? That it meant a
Yes.
connection. Because I also went to a PWI. I went
So
to a
did
white-
I,
uh,
yeah.
we went to we did not go to
Yes.
HBCUs.
No, we went to white schools.
Okay, and it was a way to connect to my community where
And
I
you're from the
wasn't when I wasn't
Midwest,
getting
right,
it there.
Simone?
Yes, Omaha. Me and Malcolm
Yes.
X. People don't know. Malcolm X
Exactly.
is originally from North Omaha, Nebraska, down the street from my mama's house. But the neighborhood I grew up in was Black.
Yeah.
But I
Your
went
family
to
Black?
my family is
Mhm.
very
Very Black.
African American. But every day I went to an all girls Catholic high school where there were maybe 5 Black girls in my graduating class. I went to a Jesuit Catholic university where I can count the number of
Yep.
maybe 40 Black people in the entire. I mean, they were members of the Creighton University African American Student Association, QASA.
Yeah.
I can count us.
Yeah.
And so those schools were not the
Lifelines,
totality
yeah.
of my Black experience, like my community was, and these magazines and watching people like Michaela on
Yes,
TV.
yes,
Those
yes,
were my
yes.
lifelines to
Yeah.
like Black life and Black culture.
Yeah, yeah.
It's kind of a piecemeal where you have to go to Shade Room
Yeah.
for this, win with Black women on the Sunday call to get the politics. Like, you have to
Yeah.
scrounge around.
You're right. I mean, Black media used to have such a political POV too. Like it was community based writing. Like you're writing for the community so the community can see things. It's how journalism really started, where there was a POV. And I wonder when there's no dedicated space. There's not the Black photographers and the Black reporters and the whole Black room where they're deciding what stories matter and get put in the media. When that is not happening, and deciding how Black people look in the world, what does that do? Because it does feel like it's not just about the magazine aspect and losing like that, but it is a question of who is telling the story
Yeah.
of Black life in this country
Yeah.
and how they're being able to do it.
Yeah.
Are they being able to do it in a way that feels honest
Yes.
and truthful? I feel lucky to work at a place where we can do that, but that is not true at a lot of legacy institutions.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, correct. And it really is the stories because, between Instagram and TikTok, there's a lot of beautiful images that people create for themselves that are coming from all corners of the world. So other people get to see the spectrum of Blackness because I think we get affirmed, but other people get informed by how diverse it is as a culture. But it's especially long form stories where there was a day where you could follow Lil' Kim around for 2 weeks and come out with this great big expose that gives her layers and gives other Black artists and politicians and people of note complexity. And now, I mean, I can tell when AI has written, a review
Yes.
on, a new album or something. So I think it's like not getting the Lowry's in your fried chicken. Like,
Yeah.
okay, you can still access the chicken. We still have access, but the Lowry's is missing. And so I think there's a charge ahead, maybe for all of us. Like, I'm writing now, so I'm doing more of that, trying to fill in gaps in other ways, because the generation behind you really isn't going to know. Because you just referenced having Vibe in college and tearing out sheets and having these stories to read where Dream Hampton and Greg Tate wrote
Yes.
like beautiful, smart, deeply investigated and deeply thought, like think pieces people actually thought about them.
Right.
Like now you get a think piece out, in 30 seconds. When did we
It's
get
a
time
take
to
piece.
have Black thought and Black complex thought? And particularly in a time like now, we have to lean on each other, and we find it in like communities and like in group chats and all of that. But putting it out into the collective imagination is really important. And I don't know what that source is now. I mean, clock it is that you all are doing your part, that we are having to find different places. I do wish there was like a place that felt like home, like Mama's House, like Susan Taylor used to make, to me, Essence feel like home. Or to some people, The Source felt like that. Or Rap Pages, when you really wanted to read about real hip hop. So it's a question. And like I said, I'm still very much in mourning about missing that and missing who's next. Who's the next Dream Hampton? Who's the next Michaela Angela Davis? I mean, we've got Lindsay Peoples at The Cut. We've got a Black editor at Elle. We've got a Black editor at Vogue in the UK. We've got Jessica Krull at Allure, and she's the editor-in-chief of 2 magazines. But so we've got some Black editors holding on to their jobs and being magnificent, but we don't have a place where all of us are going to go gather after we leave our jobs at these institutions. Where do we go? Whose living room table has the magazine on it that we're going to pick up and talk about it? Let's really talk about Doechii. Let's really talk about, what's happening in November. So, and that's the thing, is we miss the place where we can bounce from how we think about things, where everything is political, but also everything is stylish and funny. So where do we, your conversation does that a lot for us now. I'm really glad that this exists, because the politics is so crazy. Y'all got to make it funny sometimes, because
You gotta laugh to keep from crying out here.
Exactly.
You gotta cry
Well.
and laugh, okay? And then cry and laugh again. You talk about the Black women at these publications, and it makes me think about, we were talking about Issa Rae.
Yeah.
And The Wrap had its first ever creators and Hollywood Summit on April 8th. And Issa Rae was a keynote speaker. And she had a lot to say. She joined The Wrap's Raquel Calhoun on stage, and she talked about the creator economy, but she also talked about how Hollywood has changed when it comes to representation. Take a look at what she says about execs of color and the tiptoeing that Issa Rae says is happening.
I mean, I'm seeing it like just blatantly. People are scared and yeah, just not necessarily investing the same way that they would have before. Even executives who, are of color are also like tiptoeing. I'm like, well, I can't co-sign you because I'm gonna lose my job. Like, and that's scary to see. And sad to see.
It's sad to see. It's scary to see. It is, in my opinion, a direct result of the politics of the moment. People weren't tiptoeing around when they thought Kamala Harris was about to be president.
Exactly.
Okay, but because Donald Trump is the president, because of the climate that they have created, the attacks on Black people, on civil rights, that's dressed up as an attack on DEI, but it's really about our civil rights infrastructure in this country, the laws. People are scared of just backing good projects, whether it is somebody investing in a magazine, right, for Black journalists, whether it is investing in a show. People are scared because of the political climate.
Yeah, I mean, this is a horrible thing to say, but I had an editor tell me that George Floyd was his executive producer, meaning when the things were going down, people were scrambling to find Black stories, Black directors, and it was a false inclusion from Hollywood. And you could feel the sigh of relief when people felt like, oh, we don't have to do that anymore. So it's returning. So if you're one of those people that got in during that time. Like I was able to create and executive produce the Hair Tales during that
Yeah,
time.
so good.
Very good.
So
But if I went
good.
now, you know, if I sat in front of a panel of bros and talked about I wanted to make a show about Black women's identity through the lens of hair, like I couldn't even get that meeting today, probably. So we know that this is one of those swing back times that we get punished for progress. That's part of our legacy.
Yeah.
So we have these great moments of progress, then we get punished, then we have more progress, then we get punished, then we have more progress. And Black people, and I would argue Black women in particular, know how to weather this time
Yes.
better than anyone, but we tired. We don't want to, like, I don't want to build another Ebony to its greatness. It's still here too. But you know, to that greatness where the James Baldwin of today, the Ta-Nehisi wants to write for it. You know, like that's the part where the grief comes in. Like to have to, it's like Tulsa burning. Like how many times do we have to build our own institutions so that we can operate in the global world? Like we still need that. And without horror, like it takes blood to get people to move. And I'm hopeful that the next generation won't have to have tragedy open the door, be the wind that opens the door. Like you don't have to love us, just let us make some work, and everybody benefits.
Do you think there's a way back? Like, I know you said you have hope that the next generation doesn't have to deal with the pain for the doors to open. But like, if in your heart of hearts, does it feel like there's a way back to what we're talking about?
Eugene, I always feel like there's a way forward for Black folks. I have to believe that.
Yeah.
If I don't, I'm not getting up. You know, I have to believe, and our history shows us so much to that evidence that we do keep getting up. There was no plan for y'all to sit here. You weren't supposed to make it. You are surplus population, leading shows, thought leading, wearing lashes, talking about the President of the United States. So that in itself is proof that we have the resilience. And I don't know if we get to go back, but I do think we can go forward. But this is a tricky time. This is a time to, like, I don't know, learn how to plant okra and spend some time with your grandmama and get strong. Because it's real out here.
Okay. This is true.
And we're going to need different kind of muscles, you know, to get through these next few years. But I believe in us. If we can rebuild from Reconstruction, right? Like it's been worse. It's been worse. I don't know if Gen Z wants to hear that. It's been worse. I want it to be better, like now. So we got to pull it up so they can have something to clock.
Come on now, clock
Okay.
that. I think this is a perfect place to end.
Yeah.
Michaela Angela Davis, I will say, I think we're in a post-Reconstruction period right now. And just like after
I do too.
Reconstruction,
Simone.
yes, and it was in that post-Reconstruction period all those years ago where we built the institutions that have sustained us,
Yep.
where sororities and fraternities, the historically Black Greek-lettered organizations came forth, where some of our best work was done in these really tragedy and trying
Correct.
times. So
Correct.
our ancestors built anyway then, so we
Correct.
have to build anyway now.
Exactly.
Yes!
Yes, thank
We
you.
love you. Thank you. You know
That-
what? I needed this conversation.
Exactly.
This just
I love y'all.
okay. We about to take up
Thank
a collect. The
you.
doors of the church are open.
Exactly.
Okay, we about to just
Yes.
we gonna open the doors.
Very
We're gonna take
good.
up a
Yes.
collection. Then we're gonna come back for our favorite part of the show, the side chat. Don't go anywhere, folks. Michaela Angela Davis was just here. She blessed us. We'll meet you right here after the break.
Welcome back to the side chat.
Shout
where
out
we
to Michaela
love
Angela
her.
Davis.
She's so good, so smart.
Honestly, I miss seeing her. Remember growing up and you watch her on
Yes!
CNN all the time? I
Yes!
miss seeing her on
Yes!
television.
Yes, we have to get her back.
Yes.
Well, we have to talk about the White House Correspondents' Dinner.
It is happening on Saturday. Do you have thoughts?
I think we should start with your thoughts.
Okay, well, first of all, people should understand that the White House Correspondents' Dinner is happening on Saturday. Okay, this Saturday as you are listening to this. And for the first time in either of his terms, Donald Trump will be there. And there are many people, if you listen to this podcast, you have heard Don Lemon, okay, saying that, you know, he thinks it's a travesty.
He does not believe in the First Amendment. It's a slap in the face to the American people that they even invited him.
I am someone that believes, first of all, I will be at the dinner.
Yeah.
Okay, because I support good journalism. I support the First Amendment, and I'm at work.
Yeah,
And
correct.
I'm going to work, and I will be working
Yes.
by attending the dinner. I do think, though, that in unprecedented times, we have to take some unprecedented steps, and we have to do some things that we haven't done before. And I understand that they've already invited him. They is in the White House Correspondents Association, so Donald Trump is coming. But what do you do when he gets there? I will not be standing to clap for a president that does not actually believe in the First Amendment. Okay.
The thing that I think is so interesting is we're all trying to figure out what it's going to look like. So a lot of this is I'm withholding judgment. Also, Weijia Zhang is a friend of mine. She was my vice president when I was president last year.
She's the current president.
She's the current president of the association. She's a senior White House correspondent at CBS. And she takes seriously the threats that Donald Trump, his administration, and really anyone present to the First Amendment and the work that her association does all the time. I do not speak for the association, but I know that about Weijia. But I have talked to a lot of different reporters who are going to be. I will also be there.
Have you
at
talked to
work.
people within the White House Correspondents Association? Because
Correct.
Weijia
On the board or in the association?
the association, because there were a number of journalists who are not members of the White House Correspondents Association, but like 400 journalists, they wrote this letter. Like
Yeah.
Dan Rather signed it, like iconic Dan Rather. They wrote this letter basically urging the White House Correspondents Association to take a stand in some way, shape, or form
Be like tougher
on
on-
Saturday.
yeah.
Like be tougher
Yeah.
while Donald Trump is sitting there. And in response to that, I guess Weijia was asked about it.
Yeah.
And part of her statement said, she answers to the members of her association, and she has not heard concerns from members within her association.
They may not have told her that. That happens when I will say when you are a president, some of the stuff does not bubble up to you. Like people do not come to you and complain. They complain about a lot of stuff, but some of this stuff they did not come
Well,
up
maybe
to me.
that's maybe where you and Donald Trump also can identify because when you like
You don't know if what the VP's doing. But when I talk to folks who are within the association, not on the board, to be clear, like what they are struggling with is like if he goes like ham on us, are we just supposed to sit there? Do we stand when he walks in the room? Do we clap? Is there going to be a toast to the president? I will say this: when I was president last year, Donald Trump did not come. I was not surprised by this, considering me and the administration's on the First Amendment issues. I was in court with the Associated Press almost every week. So he did not come. And my preparation for the dinner was trying to write a speech that would work whether or not he came. But I had the side section that if he did come, it was really important for me to say to him, right, in his face, the kinds of things that are not okay. And I think that is maybe what the letter was about. Like the letter didn't say like cancel it or walk out.
No, the letter
but
said
people are
y'all
try-
got to take a stand.
And so it's
in
like,
some
what does
way,
that,
shape, or form.
And what does that stand
And it ain't
look
just
like?
wearing a button.
And there are a lot of folks that will be wearing First Amendment buttons.
I would put a button on, but to be clear, I don't think anybody has a question about where I stand
Yeah.
in terms of like the First Amendment or the president.
Right.
Like we speak out against it every single day. We stand up for like what is right.
Yeah.
But I do think that like the optics of this are going to be very important.
It's gonna be
And
difficult.
when he takes a jab at the journalists in the room, which he will do, I don't think trampling on the First Amendment or democracy is funny.
No.
So I won't be laughing.
No.
And I think people need to be prepared and know that everybody will be watching everything. And if they don't, we'll see what happens. And
Yeah.
we will talk about it next week. I'm feeling fancy and fresh because
Look.
I'm off that cruise,
Okay.
child. So I'm ready to go. Okay, ready to go.
I think so much of it is also like it causes you to also question within yourself, like, what will I do? Because in the moment is not the time to make the decision when
No.
something like this is happening. Like you said, you're not going to be standing when he walks in. I think a
No,
lot
no,
of people
no.
are
I'm
going to
not
figure
just
that
hold on
out.
now. I won't be laughing. Regardless of who the president of the United States is, when the president of the United States walks into a room, when the vice president of the United States walks into a room,
stand up.
you do stand. And perhaps that is because,
Your training.
my training. Like I used to work for
It's
a
about the
president and a
office.
vice president. Is it about the office? And so standing when the president walks into the room, regardless of who the president is, does not mean you endorse what they're saying. But like, I don't have to laugh at what you're
Or
saying.
clap.
I don't need to clap at what you're doing. Like, but I do think that when the president walks into the room, you should stand, regardless of who the president is.
Exactly.
Well, clock it.
Whew. Thanks so much for listening to Clock It.
Okay, if you like what you heard, Please rate us 5 stars.
5 only.
And leave a review.
Nice ones.
Yes.
You can subscribe to MS Now Premium on Apple Podcasts to get this and other MS Now podcasts for ad-free. No ads. As a subscriber, you'll also get exclusive bonus content.
And this week, you can hear a special bonus episode of Trumpland with Alex Wagner. It's about the Hungarian election that ousted autocrat Viktor Orban earlier this month. It's so good. Alex catches up with a member of the Hungarian parliament about what Orban's ouster means for Hungary and what it could mean for politics here at home.